President, please be seated. The court is now in session. We continue hearing the testimonies of Mr. Kum Ngon. Questions remain to be put by the prosecutor. The chamber would like to hand over to the prosecutor to put questions to this witness. You may proceed.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Et bon...
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and good afternoon, Mr. President, and your honors, counsel, and good afternoon, witness. The last time, witness, you said you were somewhat afraid before you started testifying. I just want to be sure you will continue to testify today as you did before. And please give very precise and concise answers to the questions I will put to you. The last time you said you worked in house number 7, that is the Chinese embassy. Did you also happen to serve the leaders of Democratic Cambodia during meetings and dinners?
Response. At House 7, we served Chinese guests and Cambodian leaders. And Hong was the one who oversaw this arrangement.
Savez-vous qui...
Do you know who the Cambodian leaders were, those you served at house number 7?
Response. The leaders at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs include Hong Phuong, the head of the office, and there were other leaders who attended the meetings, but as a combatant I didn't take good notice of that.
Est-ce que durant la période du Cambodia...
During the period of Democratic Cambodia, did you ever meet with OC Mr. Ieng Sari?
Response. At the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I often heard that Ieng Sari would come to meetings at the theater, but I did not go there. Only Phuong and other people went there. I don't know whether Thun also went there to the meeting because it was a long time ago. I don't recollect the details.
Merci.
Thank you. On Thursday last week, you did say that you were criticized during a meeting at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the following day you had to draft your autobiography.
Adressé lors de cette réunion.
What were those criticisms on, the criticisms leveled against you during the meeting?
Response. Phuong, who was the deputy head of the office, would the one who criticized me because he said that I was having some immoral misconduct, and I was removed to the Khmer for 3 months.
En quoi consistait ce problème de...
What did the problem of morality consist of, and what were the immediate consequences that you endured?
Response. At that time, some women chit-chatted with me, but we didn't know that we were reported on that. And later on, another colleague of mine was also removed because of our engagement in this conversation with women.
Est-ce que c'était interdit d'avoir des conversations avec les femmes?
Was it prohibited to hold conversations with women during the period of democratic Cambodia?
Your response. I believe that this right was prohibited, and when working with the guests, we were instructed time and again by Hong not to have any problem with morality.
Est-ce que vous vous êtes marié par la suite avec l'une de ces femmes?
Did you subsequently marry one of the women with whom you had conversation?
Response. No, I didn't. I did not get married with her, and because my conversation with her, I was regarded as an enemy, and I was removed to grow some vegetables instead.
Merci.
Thank you. I would like us to backtrack a little and talk about the drafting of your autobiography. Did you know any other persons at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs who were requested to draft biographies? And also after having been criticized?
Response. I was requested to write my autobiography immediately and have it submitted to the upper echelon. As I indicated, I made several mistakes in the biography writing, and I had to have it written time and again for 3 times before it was complete. But I felt that people could have problems. That's why their biography could be asked to draft.
Merci.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I go into another line of questioning, I would like to request your leave to show the witness a photograph. It is a photograph featuring a foreign delegation arriving in Pochentong. Its reference is E190 E190.1.194, and the ERN number is 00513612. May I request your leave to also place this photograph on the screen?
The President, you may proceed.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Witness, please look at that photograph, particularly the two persons to the far right of the photograph, beginning with the one who is at the extreme right and whose photograph is cut. You can see his face and half of his body. Can you tell us whether you know that person?
La photo va être affichée à l'écran, mais elle n'est pas encore...
The photograph is now on the screen. Witness, do you know this person who is to the far right? I have indicated him with an arrow.
Otgolapu response. No, I don't know this person. Never seen him before. Otgol.
Merci. Et...
Otgol.
Thank you. You also have a second person from the right in the background. I don't know whether you would recognize that person. Do you know that person?
Response. I can't find the person. Where is he?
Monsieur le témoin. Monsieur le témoin.
Witness, look at the photograph that has been given to you, the hard copy of that photograph. It's the same photograph on the screen.
Response. I don't see myself in the photograph.
Merci, monsieur le témoin.
Thank you, witness. I am not asking you to tell me whether you are on the photograph or not. All I am asking of you is to tell me whether you recognize the person indicated with the arrow.
Audible response. No, I don't. I don't recognize this person.
Merci.
Thank you. Now, during the period you spent at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the time when you worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, were there any purges?
Response. At B1, there were women who were in charge of cleaning the vicinity.
Monsieur le Président, je ne crois pas que j'ai eu l'entièreté de la...
Mr. President, I don't think I heard the entire answer given by the witness. A witness, could you please repeat your answer? Were there any purges at the Foreign Ministry? What I mean by purges is arrests of persons.
Response. I do not know anything about the arrest, but I knew that people were removed from one place to another and they never been seen again. And I don't know more about this.
Est-ce qu'il y a des gens...
Did you know people working with you who were arrested at the Foreign Ministry when you were there? I mean, close colleagues of yours.
Response. Chirung was arrested and we were told that he would be moved to another location and he had to say goodbye to me telling me that he would be moving to a new location. And that's all I know.
Est-ce qu'on a accusé Shrong de quelque chose?
Was Shrong accused of anything?
Response. Trừng was accused when he escorted guests to Kampot or perhaps Kampong Saum. I don't remember the detail. Upon coming back, he had to attend meeting with others, the livelihood meeting, and the next day he was removed. I believe that he could have committed some wrongdoing when he was on his duty during his course of work to take guests to the location I indicated, but I have no other idea on this.
Je vais peut-être, avec l'autorisation de la...
With the Chamber's leave, I will perhaps try to jog your memory regarding this incident. Mr. President, may I request your leave to read an excerpt of document 280/18. It is the record of the witnesses' interview by the co-investigating judges, and it is on page 7 in French, page 7 in English as well, and it overlaps pages 7 and 8 in Khmer.
Est-ce que je peux lire cet extrait?
May I read the extract in question?
The President, you may proceed. Would you also request that the document be put up on the screens?
Oui, je crois que pour le public et les...
I think it would be good for the public to view the extract on the screen, even though the witness is not in a position to read it.
The President, to save us some time, you may proceed by making the request altogether for reading the material to the witness and asking the chamber that the documents be put up on the screen, because you have done that pretty well already during the morning session.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Witness, you gave a lengthy answer in this report regarding your colleague, Mr. Shrong. Let me quote what you stated. At the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, people accused of being enemies, CIA and KGB people were purged. Those accused enemies were Shrong and Tun, T-H-O-E-U-N. Shrong was arrested and sent to S21, while Tun successfully escaped. Shrong was arrested because he, as a driver, caused a car accident and killed 2 people and injured 1, a Chinese national and a Khmer national called Tuan were killed, while Tun got injured in the legs. Shrong was alleged of not abiding by the law, betrayal, and threat to politics. Prior to his arrest, he, as usual, was invited to a meeting. I was also there when Shrong was invited. End of quote. Witness, do you confirm what you told the co-investigating judges in light of what I have just read out to you?
Response, yes, I do.
Lorsque
When people were identified as enemies or traitors at the foreign ministry, I mean people like Shrung, what happened to them? Do you know?
No response. Among the 6 of us, we were concerned. Because when one person was removed after being involved in politics, then other would also be taken away. However, I was very young at that time. I was never been sent away from far away from work.
est-ce que Shrung est
Did you ever see Shrung and the other persons who were led away after they were led away?
Response: they just disappeared. I have never seen them again.
Savez-vous qui a donné l'ordre d'arrêter?
Do you know who issued orders that Shrung and perhaps Tun be arrested?
Response: as long as Hong was the head of the office, he could have been the person who rendered the orders, but he may have taken orders from his superiors as well. So I believe that it was Hong who would be behind this.
Merci. Alors,
Thank you. I believe you said you were present at the ministry. Who led Shrung away?
Response: Zheng was accompanied by Hong, and I guess perhaps with another person. With the head of the office, I believe that there were 2 people at that time, but I just don't remember the details. I knew that there were people being sent away at that time.
vous avez dit que beaucoup de personnes avaient été emmenées.
You stated that many people were led away and you were afraid. Can you tell us how many of your colleagues at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs were led away while you were working there?
Response: at house number 7, there were 8 people, including the driver. There were 3 women indeed. Ministry of Foreign Affairs were classified into different sections. Some people were made to stay at house number 1 or B1. And whenever an arrest was made, I would never be made or informed. And I believe that Hong, who was the person who overly in charge of this, would be knowledgeable of this. And at that time, I kept my mouth shut because I would not want people to also bring trouble to me for speaking out.
Merci, monsieur le témoin.
Thank you, witness. I would like us now to talk about the period when you were taken to Tak Mao. You said on several occasions that following the drafting of your biography, you were taken to Tak Mao. Can you tell us when that event occurred? During what period were you sent to Tak Mao? What period of what year?
Response. It was in 1976 or mid 1976 when I was removed to Tak Mao. I do not take the year very seriously, but I remember that it was in 1976. I was removed to the location where I had remained for 3 months, where I grew vegetables before I was transferred back to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs after being educated. I didn't talk much, and I had to write the biography. I had to really write it time and again, 3 times a day, and I felt that I was scared. My superior would ask me to do my work and escort a guest, and I had to abide by the orders. Otherwise, I would be myself be taken away as drunk.
Merci. À l'époque, vous êtes pas...
Thank you. When you were sent to Tak Mao, do you know who ordered that you be sent there?
Response. It was Hong who ordered the removal, but Hung was the guy who escorted me there, and at that location in Tak Mao there was a grandfather who was in charge of assigning me tasks.
Merci.
Thank you. Was that production site at Tak Mao under the jurisdiction of the Foreign Ministry or not?
It might be under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Just it might be under the control of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That's all.
Est-ce que vous connaissez le nom?
Were you aware of the code name of the production site in Tak Mao?
Hey.
Well, I don't think I know any code name.
Merci.
Thank you. What was the name of the elderly man who was giving you instructions in situ at Tak Mao?
It was Da Huan. His name was Da Huan. That's all.
Thank you. At Tak Mao, were there many people like you who were working in the fields?
At a time, that place was a countryside. There were palm trees, but I cannot recollect it as I was quite young. But I'm sure there were rice fields. There were about 20 of us. And at that time, I did not know them very well yet.
Est-ce que parmi
And among those 20 people, were there any individuals whom you had previously met at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or did they come from elsewhere?
They were from elsewhere. I was the only person who was brought from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs after I worked there for some months. And when I arrived at the Khmer, I did not know people there yet. I knew their name, but I now forget all their names.
est-ce qu'ils vous ont dit d'où
And did they tell you where they were from and where they had worked previously?
I did ask them, and they said some of them were taken from a mobile unit. Some were taken from countryside, and there it was a place, it was an a re-educational camp. They were from various ministries. Rather, other ministries had their respective re-educational centers.
Since they were being re-educated, does that mean that they were accused of certain wrongdoings as you were?
Yeah, we were the same. That's why we were brought there. That was the place where we were tempered. This is what I understood. It was the place where we were tempered. That's all, Uncle.
Est-ce que certaines de ces personnes
And did any of the individuals who were with you at the time during your work at Takmayo disappear afterwards?
During my almost 3 months there, I did not see anyone was sent away. But I do not know what happened next after I went away from the place, because I did not witness that myself. That's all.
Merci, Monsieur le témoin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Witness. I just seek one clarification, because in your statement made before the co-investigating judges, in document D280/18 on page 9 of the Khmer version, 9 of the French version, and 8 on the English version, you stated, and I quote, "Yes, they committed wrongdoings, they were punished, they had farmed cabbages, they were all shot except for me." Free interpretation. Today, sir, you are telling us that nobody disappeared. Therefore, do you want to correct what was stated before the co-investigating judges, or do you wish to stand by this statement?
When I said Chung was taken away, I did not know where he was taken to. And when I was brought to the re-educational center, I did not even know where he was brought to. I just knew that he was taken away. That's what I said earlier. I did not know much. I did not understand a lot about that.
Merci.
Thank you. A few final questions with respect to foreign delegations. You said that you were often called upon to accompany these delegations during their travels across democratic Cambodia. So, which countries did these guests come from?
I accompanied a guest to Takao once. We went to Kampong Sao once. I remember that I accompanied guests 3 times. We went to Takao with a driver. That's all from me.
Et de quelle nationalité?
And of what nationality were these guests? What countries did they come from?
Those guests were Korean, Chinese, Cuban, and some other nationalities. I do not recall. There were about 6 or 7 nationalities. Well, they were representing a Korean embassy, Chinese embassy, Vietnamese embassy, Cuban embassy, and some other embassy. I do not remember them all.
Au moment où vous avez...
And while you were accompanying these foreign delegations, who held the highest rank within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and accompanied these delegations? Now, I understand that you were among those traveling, but who was the highest ranking member from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs who was also accompanying those delegations?
At the time, Bong Hong also accompanied those guests. And according to what Pung has said, Khieu Samphan was probably accompanying those guests as well. But I'm sure that Bong Hong was there. One day I accompanied the guests to some place I cannot recall. And when we arrived at the place, the guest asked for the well-being of the local people there. I did not answer the question by the guest because I was afraid that I would be put in trouble. I was asked whether the villagers ate porridge or rice. I did not dare to answer that question. I only nodded my head.
Deux dernières questions.
2 final questions, Mr. Witness. Did you know what those foreign visitors were doing in Cambodia during those visits?
I did not understand that during that time. I did not know the reason why we had embassies in our country during that time. I did not understand that. I was merely a combatant, and I dare not ask them anything about that.
Mais est-ce que c'était les personnes...
Were the people you were accompanying from the embassy, or did they come from abroad? Were they in democratic Kampuchea for a limited duration of time?
Those were foreign guests, and there were about 2 or 3 female servants. Those who had a good experience in the party were also there.
D'accord.
Very well. When you were traveling to Kampong Som, Takmayo, and in other provinces, did you make any stopovers? During the journey from Phnom Penh to Takmayo, did you visit, for example, work fields or factories, or did you travel directly from one destination to the next without any pause?
When guests went from Phnom Penh to Takao, we did not stop along the way. We went straight to the place. But whenever we stopped, the guests would ask us what the place was and what people were doing there. But we never stopped.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le témoin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Witness. I have no further questions to put to the witness, Mr. President. I believe that the floor can now be handed over to the civil party lawyers. Thank you.
President, thank you. The chamber now hands over to the lead co-lawyers to put questions to this witness. Counsel Lau Junti. Good afternoon, Your Honors. Good afternoon, my colleagues and those who are following the proceedings in the public gallery. And good afternoon, Mr. Witness. My name is Lau Junti. I am the civil party lawyer. I will only have a few questions to you, as the prosecution has asked a lot of questions to you. Especially, I would like to know from you about some contextual background following what has been asked by the prosecution. To me, it seems not very clear. My question is, in 1975, that is prior to the falls of Phnom Penh, where were you? Before 1975, where were you? Response: before 1975, that is before the fall of Phnom Penh, I was in Takao province. I was a military man there. I was a soldier there. Question: so that means you were in Takao province before 1975, and were you a militia man or were you a soldier? Response: I was a militia man for about 1 month before I was sent to Thon Mon village. Question: there is one point that I find not clear. The people were evacuated out of Takeo province, moving backward. What do you mean by that? People were evacuating backward. Response. People were evacuated to the back. As I said earlier, I did not witness that myself. My friends saw it. Some people were arrested. My friend, whose name was Turn, was positioning to the west side, and he saw that. He said people were arrested and loaded onto trucks, but I myself, I did not see it. But as I understood, people were loaded onto trucks. After the attacks, I was taken to the district office to work at the office, as I said previously. And about 1 month after, I was called to attend a meeting, and I went to Phnom Penh. Question. From your previous testimony, you said that during that evacuation there were arrests, for example, of Tribunal soldiers, and those soldiers were loaded onto trucks and brought to the back side. What does that mean? Response. From my understanding, that was because of the senior leaders. I was about 15 years old at the time, so I did not understand very much. I thought probably because those people were to be taken away and kept at some place. They were to be gathered in one place. That's what I understood. Question. Thank you. One other important point from your testimony is that during the evacuation, if people persisted, they would be shot dead. The President interrupts. Witness, please hold on. Yes, National Counsel for Mr. Nunji, you may proceed. Counsel Sunarun. Thank you, Mr. President. All of the questions asked just now are leading questions. The witness did not witness the events. He was in the other direction. Counsel Lau Chun Thi. If I may, Mr. President, I am not leading the witness because the witness already mentioned those facts in his written record of interviews, that those people were arrested and loaded onto trucks. I am only asking for confirmation from a witness whether he saw those events. The President, if these are question and answers in the written record of interview done by the co-investigating judges, these questions are not leading. So the objection is not sustained. However, counsel for civil parties are supposed to identify the documents he or she is referring to. A counsel should not just refer to any document without the identification of that document. Counsel Lau Chun Thi. if I may continue with my other question. Mr. Witness, when you were taken to work at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, when you first arrived at the place, who did you meet as your superior? Response: when I went from the province to Phnom Penh, I was first taken to a study session, but I was not yet aware of who my superior was. After the study sessions for about 1 week, I was taken to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Question: you said you accompanied some foreign guests, Chinese guests, Vietnamese guests. My question is, to which places did you bring those guests? Response: I went with those guests 3 times. We went to, I seem to forget about those places. I only remember that I went with them 3 times, and we never stopped along the way. But we stopped at one cooperative, as I said earlier. And as I said, I dared not speak to the guests. I only nodded my head. And I cannot tell who were among those guests either, because we were in different trucks. I was merely a combatant during that time. Question: when you were suspected of misconducting, you said you just went back from bringing your guests to Takeo. Did you say that when you were in Takeo you met with your relatives? Response: villagers were not allowed to see those guests. Only people from the mobile units were allowed to come along with them. Well, there were some villagers, but there were only a handful of villagers. And I saw that from a car. I was inside the car. We were afraid of having secret spies among us. My question, says the counsel, was that when you were removed from a Foreign Affairs Ministry to Takmau, what was the cause of your removal? Was it because you met with your relatives when you were in Takeo? Response: when I was in Takeo, I met with my cousin who was at the cooperative. He told me that his wife was mashed, and I asked him what for. I learned this information and I kept it with me. I dared not tell anyone about this. It was about 3 or 4 months later that I thought that the case was true, that my relative was killed, and that was why I was removed to Takmau. Question. One more question. When you were at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you said that your immediate superior was Mr. Hong. Did you know any other person who was about Mr. Hong? Response. I may have heard some names. There were meetings at some place, but well, I cannot tell exactly where they met, but I cannot tell whether there were other leaders above Hong. I don't know exactly, but there must have been superiors above Hong. The President, Council Michael Canavas, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon to everyone in and around the courtroom. Mr. President, I understand it's difficult to follow another lawyer when you've prepared your questions, but almost every single question that has been asked by the gentleman has already been covered by the prosecutor, and we're simply wasting time. So perhaps the gentleman can look at his notes and simply ask questions that are directly related to this witness that have not been covered by the prosecutor. But we're covering a lot of that question. The last question was covered last Thursday. I see no profit in this procedure, and if we are efficient, we could possibly end this witness today.
Well, the President, thank you, Counsel. However, you should have objected earlier than that and make your objections succinct. The Chamber has observed that it has been very difficult to control questions to be asked by parties. Parties are entitled with the right to make objections to the question asked by other parties, and the Chamber will hear the objections before it ruled on the objection. And parties are reminded to make the objections brief and clear enough for the Chambers to make immediate decision. We thank you very much for your concern. The Chamber has already reminded the parties to put only potential questions that are related to the facts set out in the closing order or the indictment, and try not to put question as if the witness was the accused person. Questions should allow the witness to answer on the basis of what he or she saw or experienced during the regime, but the problem persists. The Chamber has tried not to intervene. However, parties are reminded to know how to put questions to a particular witness in order to save time. It is now appropriate for us to take a short break. We will have a 20-minute break, and we will come back at 2:50. The court officer is instructed to accommodate the witness and his duty counsel in his waiting room and return them at 2:50. The court is now adjourned.
សូមក្រោកឈរ